Good morning or afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Ask the Food Safety Auditor Live, Best Practices for Regulatory, GFSI, Internal, and Customer Audits, brought to you by SafetyChain and SCS Global Services. I'm Barbara Levin. I'm a co-founder of SafetyChain. I'll be your moderator today, and I'll introduce you to our guest speaker in just a moment. Before we start, let me give you just a few housekeeping issues. We are hosting our webinar today on WebEx. If you have any technical questions and you're still logged in, you can send a question to the host, or you can call WebEx technical support directly at 877-509-3239. Again, that's 877-509-3239. We will be getting everybody a copy of the slides as well as a link to the recording, and you'll receive that via email by close of business on Monday. For privacy, you can view your name and the names of the host and panelists only. You will not be able to view the names of the other registrants today. We'll take a couple of questions throughout, but then we'll be coming out of full screen at the end of the session, and we'll be able to get everybody's questions there. We have a great agenda planned today. We're going to start with some pre-submitted questions about audit best practices, biggest no-nos, continuous improvement, unannounced audits, the role of audits in food safety, and automation in audits. We're then going to come out at full screen, and you'll be able to queue up all of your questions. During that time, we'll give you a little bit of information about how your sponsors today can help you be audit ready, and then it's going to be your turn to ask the auditor. So with that, I am really excited to introduce Heena Patel today. Heena is a Senior Technical Director and Auditor for our partner, SCS Global Services. She's done hundreds of audits, and I'm really excited that she's here today to share her insights and experience with you. Welcome, Heena.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, we're going to jump right into it because I know that we're going to have a lot of questions. So we're just going to go to this first question, and I think, you know, front of mind for everybody, what are the top 5 best practices from your point of view as somebody who's done all these audits that food and beverage companies should be following for successful audits?
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you to everyone and welcome. Thank you for the invitation, Barbara. I'm excited to be here. I would like to thank our partner, SafetyChain, for hosting this SCS Global Services joint webinar. I will do my best to answer as many questions as possible, and hopefully you, our audience, will gain valuable information in support of your food safety program from this webinar. I'm an auditor myself, and I have conducted hundreds of audits in my lifetime. And here are some tips that I would like to share with you all. When an auditor walks in, they start to make observations, oh yeah. And one of the things that the auditor looks for is confidence among the team members and whether the audit team at the site is ready or not for the audit. So it's very important to work with the audit team well ahead of time, be prepared, and have confidence that the audit will go well. Let's put it this way. The auditor is visiting the site for the first time, and he or she will not know much about the roles and responsibilities and the operational activities at the site. They're relying on you to provide information by asking right questions, and you know your roles and responsibilities in the programs. So provide from the best of your knowledge what you know and work with the auditor. Stay calm, don't show any signs of nervousness. Then the auditor will think, everyone is nervous in the team. I don't know which way this audit will go and what the outcome will be. So as a guidance, follow the audit plan. This is a great tip. Audit plan is sent by the auditor to the site well ahead of time, and the plan has detailed information such as when the auditor will be arriving at the facility, conducting the opening meeting, doing facility walkthroughs, and reviewing the records and documents. This is a very good guideline, which will allow you to prepare for the audit for each section covered in the audit checklist as the audit is going along. And also it will give you a heads up which areas the auditor will be covering within those time frames. So have your staff ready since they'll be representing the departments during the audit. It's also very important to have key personnel present during the opening meeting, facility walkthroughs, and closing meeting. And for example, these key personnel could be representatives from production, maintenance, sanitation, QA, and any other department. Another area to focus is internal audit. Internal audit is another great tool to prepare for the audit. To avoid any surprises during the audit, which nobody likes, request the audit checklist the auditor will be using well ahead of time. That's what I would do if I was in your shoes. During the internal audit, the audit team can go over the same questions which the auditor will be covering and have the information ready for the audit. You can assign senior management to cover some sections as well from the audit checklist, because they'll be aware of the audit requirements. Put them to work. That will be, I think, will be pretty helpful. Support from senior management is also very critical. Auditors would like to see that senior management is present during opening meeting and closing meeting, and that they're providing support to the audit team throughout the audit. Their presence will show that the senior management is supportive and that they're working as a team with their coworkers. And the last but not the least, be the auditor. You know, Barbara, that's something that the auditors look forward to, you know, after having a long day of audit. You don't want to have a grumpy auditor at your side, do you? So I personally refuse to eat Subway sandwiches. I don't know how many times I had over the last 20 years. So keep your auditor happy, you know, when the audit is going on. Auditor will be there just a couple of days, and, you know, they're going to leave. So just make sure that the environment is very calm.
There you go. Heena, I'm going to take a quick question from our participants. This is a question that came in from John. I know you and I have discussed this. You know, management commitment is a part of a lot of audit schemes, and it's usually one of the hardest things to demonstrate. Do you have any insight for our audience on ways to demonstrate management commitment?
Well, management commitment is very important. The last thing the auditor would like to see is that there's lack of management commitment. And say, for example, when the auditor is making observations on the building structures and fixtures, and there are so many issues that had not been corrected for many months, and the projects are sitting idle and management has not provided any financial resources to fix the issues. So management plays a huge role when it comes to management commitment.
Great, thank you. Let's go to our next question. So we've spoken about the best practices. You know, in your eyes, when you think about all of the audits that maybe didn't go so well and there were deductions, what are the biggest no-nos that you see?
Well, the biggest no-nos that I typically see, based on my experience, is that lack of management commitment and lack of teamwork. The last thing the auditor would like to see is lack of senior management commitment, to put it that way. So, for example, I mentioned previously building structures and fixtures, you know, just sitting idle, not getting fixed and corrected. Another area that I would like to point out is that not having competent staff in the team to ensure that the programs are getting implemented effectively. This is one of the important areas where the management must focus and invest in the staff by setting adequate time aside for in-house training, sending personnel to training classes, and hiring personnel with professional background. And if the staff doesn't understand the questions being asked from the code requirements, then they won't be able to provide correct and good information during the audit. And this will clearly reflect that the team is not organized and is unprepared for the audit. And what I've done is that I put this matrix together, and this matrix is a very good tool, and it could be very helpful if the site can focus in these areas and save some points during the audit and not getting deductions during the audit. What we have done is we trended the findings from the audits that we conduct, and these are some of the areas where most of the nonconformities come from. Most of the findings come from lack of prerequisite program implementation, lack of cross-training, and not having backups. And also, prerequisite program is a huge section in the audit checklist, and it covers so many areas. Say, for example, maintenance of the building and equipment, sanitation practices, calibration, traceability, mark recall, allergen management, training, testing, etc. So I think this slide will be really helpful. It covers are some key areas to focus on, like business continuity plan, management review, prerequisite programs, and building structures and fixtures.
Great, thank you. I was really glad that you provided this for us because indeed, as you said, you've been doing this trending, and these are the top areas for nonconformances. And I'm already seeing a few questions coming in, and so this matrix is in the slides, and again, by close of business on Monday, everybody will be able to download the link to the recording and the copy of the slides. So thank you so much for including that. Let's go on to our third question. I know that, you know, at SafetyChain, when we're out speaking with food and beverage companies, this is an area that people struggle with, and that's that ability to demonstrate continuous improvement. As an auditor who is auditing on the ability to demonstrate that, Heena, what are you looking for companies to do for them to get high marks in this area?
Yeah, this is a great slide, and I love this section of the audit, believe me. This is one of my pet peeves. Auditors do not like to see that the program is not moving forward and that the program is sitting idle. We always ask the probing questions. From a continuous improvement standpoint, we ask questions such as, have you made any changes in the facility? What have you done to improve the program? And if we get an answer as well, there have not been any improvements, then it kind of does not look too good. So therefore, the site must invest and provide financial resources to upgrade facilities if they see there's a need, improve production efficiencies to avoid any product loss, avoid equipment breakdowns to save time and money, and again, invest in employees by taking training program to the next level. Also, very important, is to measure the performance of the continuous improvement program. Senior management must come up with some key performance indicators. KPIs are the tools to measure the performance of the food safety and quality management systems by setting goals and targets for each KPI. For example, some of the KPIs used are evaluation of the internal audit findings, evaluation of external audit findings, customer complaints, whether the site had any major critical findings, and obviously no withdrawals and recalls. So the data collected throughout the year for these KPIs need to be trended and evaluated during management review meetings to see where the program stands. So it brings everyone on the table, starting from senior management to middle management and production workers, and any issues at the site needs to be addressed. And also, the data collected throughout the whole year needs to be evaluated and trended. I mean, there's no point in filing all the records and not taking a second look and not trending some of the key areas in the food safety program. Hello?
Oh, hello. I'm sorry about that. I was trying to be polite, and I went on mute so people wouldn't hear background noise, and I forgot to take myself off. So anyhow, I was saying, you know, unannounced audits, right? Front of mind. Yes?
Yeah, unannounced audits is most of the scheme owners are not switching to unannounced audits. I think that's great from an auditor's viewpoint. The intent behind unannounced audit is to see whether the site is audit ready or not at all times. Auditors have skills to see whether the records or sites are prepared or not for the audit and whether last-minute work has been done. Say, for example, you know, based on my experience, when I go in, you know, they know, especially with the announced audits, the auditor is coming at the site, and just by making observations, you can see, okay, the floors are all swept well, super clean. There are no cobwebs to be found. Everything is arranged beautifully in the dry goods warehouse. Records have been reviewed 1 or 2 days beforehand. Mock recall was conducted 1 day before the audit. Internal audit was conducted 1 or 2 days before the audit. So you kind of reflect to the site, kind of, you know, prepared the audit last minute, and I think that's not a good sign. So it's very important to come up with a schedule in-house, and in terms of records review, try to review the records on a continuous basis to avoid a panicky situation, during the audit, the team should be reviewing and signing off all the records as they're getting completed, because there's so many records to review and sign off. So come up with a schedule, assign personnel to review records within a week or within 2 days, whatever suits best for the facility. Conduct continuous walkthroughs in the facility to make sure the facility is kept clean, and that employees are following personal hygiene practices and proper product handling practices. Ask senior management for support to fix things as they are being found inside the facility. These are some of the tips that you can work towards and be prepared for the audit, for the unannounced audit especially.
Yeah, I think that certainly, the U.S. conference last week, and they announced unannounced audits this year, and that program has just begun a couple of months ago. And, we had some big food safety events where there was an audit, not too long before. So I think we're going to see this trend continue, and audit readiness is going to be, a very key role.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, yeah. It's going to keep the suppliers on the toes and be audit ready at all the time.
Great. What role should audits play in an overall food safety plan? We certainly know where they come in terms of GFSI certification, but looking at the big picture in a company's food safety plan or under FSMA plans, what role does the audit play?
From my view, verification and validation programs allow the site to cross-check where the program stands. Verification, as we all know, means do what you say, and validation is to make sure whatever system you have put in place is working or not. So this also requires a cross-check and review of any changes made in the food safety and quality management systems. Have the program reviewed independently. There are lots of professionals in the industry, and they can provide a service to come at the site to evaluate the program and take it to the next level if needed. Also, by having a third-party independent audit conducted, which is a good tool to measure the performance of the audit, findings should not be looked from a negative standpoint, but more from an opportunity for improvement standpoint. The outcome of the audit must be looked from a positive standpoint. It should serve as a reward or achievement when you pass the audit. From my experience, I've seen how many findings I have, as I'm doing the audit. And when the auditor gives a finding, it will take your program to the next level. And these audits are pretty big, so findings should be looked more from a positive standpoint. It will take your food safety program to the next level.
Great, thank you. Let's go to our next question now. I can put down here. So, obviously, the food industry is starting to really adopt software systems and automation in much greater numbers these days, and audits are really one of the reasons for that. From your viewpoint, how can automation and software technology for food safety and quality facilitate audit readiness, Heena?
Yeah, I like the automation system. From my experience, way back many years ago, there was no automation system in place. The auditors were using just hard copies of audit checklists. By having automation system, it makes the auditing work more efficient and easier to communicate. The system can be tailored to have wonderful features to allow the audit process to be carried out effectively. The system allows to prepare audit plans, for example, assign auditors to the system, upload audit reports, close non-conformities, and issue certificates to the database system. And the certification bodies, the auditors, and the suppliers can see the information at one place, and they can share the information. Automated reminders such as due dates for the corrective actions are sent out to the system, and this helps the supplier and the auditor to communicate via the database system to either close or reject the corrective actions. One of the things that I like in the database system is that all the records are kept in one place. And these records are, for example, who conducted the audit, final reports, all the nonconformities, and all the corrective actions. So everyone goes to one place, and you can retrieve all the records from the database system. So it also cuts back on the paperwork.
Yeah.
You know, all the information is there, and it's very efficient. So
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Let's go out of full screen now, and it's time, I think, for our audience to start to ask their questions. And so what we're going to do now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how your sponsors, SafetyChain and SCS Global Services, can help you be audit ready, and then it will be your time to ask Heena all of the questions that you have. All of you should be able to see on the lower right-hand side now the Q&A box. You simply just enter your question in there and hit send, and we'll start to take those as soon as we get them queued up. I want to start with talking about how SafetyChain and our software solution, SafetyChain for Food, can help you be audit ready all the time on demand. I put this little quiz up there, right? And there's some questions that you might want to ask yourself about audit readiness. Are you 100% sure that all of your SOPs and your CCPs and PRPs are current and being carried out and can easily be accessed in terms of documentation? Are you sure that you can easily access all of the documentation required to demonstrate compliance with your suppliers or your approved vendor programs? Do you have access proof of your corrective and preventive actions? Do you have and can you easily access all of the data that you need for trending, for continuous improvement? And can you effectively respond to regulatory GFSI and customer queries quickly? And if you've answered no or to any one of these questions, then automation may be something that can help you out. Our solution automates all of your manual safety and quality processes and programs. It helps you say what you do what you say, make sure it works, and make sure it's documented. It ensures all plans and programs are carried out on time and according to plan. Creates a central repository of safety and quality data and records for trending, for the continuous improvement that Heena spoke about and how important that is. It helps deliver greater efficacy with unalterable time and date stamps. And we have been hearing from regulators and GFSI auditors that they prefer electronic records because of that efficacy. Our solutions can help you be ready 24/7, 365 for audits on demand. And we provide solutions for supplier compliance, safety and quality data management and analysis with non-conformance alerts, GFSI and regulatory compliance, audit readiness, as well as mobile applications so you can take your FSQA automation with you, whether you're on the plant floor or auditing suppliers, doing pre-harvest inspections and the like. We have a white paper on audit readiness. If you registered for the conference, you should have received it. If you didn't see that for any reason, when you get the email on Monday that will have the slides and the recording, there'll also be another link to that white paper. If you'd like to see a demonstration of our solution, we're having a demo day a week from today on the 14th, and you can register for that at SafetyChain.com. I'd like to also take a minute to tell you about SCS Global Services. SafetyChain is really excited to be partnering with them. They're more than just a certification body. They really provide you with end-to-end solutions for food safety through their global network of resources and consultants. They can help you from the beginning of your food safety journey with risk management and food safety plans all the way through to your certification. They have a national network of experienced food safety auditors, and they're a trusted third-party food safety certified to GFSI schemes, including SQF, BRC, Global GAP. They've got extensive relationships with retailers, extensive food training capabilities, and also manufacturer-based for USDA organic, sustainable sourcing, supply chain, risk management, and flavor and sensory analysis. And now it is time for us to ask the auditor anything, and let's see what people are asking you, Heena. Got a question from, from Sarah, who's saying, is it appropriate to look at procedures and policies in electronic forms? And that's certainly something that, we talk about a lot. Heena, from your viewpoint?
Yes, during the audit, if the site chooses to provide procedures like SOPs and other documented procedures electronically, they can pull it up on the screen. That's fine. As long as the auditor has access to the information, you don't have to provide hard copies. It just depends on the site, which way they want to choose to provide the documents.
Great. What of indicating authorization and verifications of records are acceptable to auditors? I know that we talk about, 21 CFR compliance. Anything else that you can add to that?
Well, in terms of records, auditors would like to see that all the records are easily retrievable, that the records have been completed fully, that there is no usage of any whiteouts or pencil, and the records are getting reviewed on a continuous basis. So it kind of reflects that the site is ready all the time. They're not trying to go and prepare things last minute. And it shows that the assigned personnel are on top of reviewing the records. And also, another thing that I would like to emphasize is that training should be provided to the personnel who are completing the records, because some of the findings comes from incomplete records. So that's another area of concern as well during the audit, record keeping.
Right. And another question from Carissa. Having electronic records, we've spoken about the benefits of those. Are there situations where companies should still keep paper copies on hand? I know they're required less and less, but there might be a few places where they still are, correct?
Yeah, correct. It's always good to have a backup of the paperwork, because it depends on the database system, because from my experience, I've seen a couple of times where during the audit, the system doesn't work, or the personnel are not able to retrieve all the records in a timely manner, and the auditor is sitting around and waiting around for the records. So having a backup system will be great. Hard copies, do not throw them away legally. Organic program that require 5 years of records, and maybe your customers might be requiring certain records to be kept for so many years. So you'll have to work with the regulatory requirements and then your customer requirements as well. It's always good to have a backup. I mean, I would probably file it away just to make sure that those records are the backups.
Yeah, I can definitely add to that, in some systems, certainly, with the SafetyChain system, because it's a cloud-based system, there are never less than 5 backups. So we can help with that, and also to provide roles-based access to your auditor. So you can give their auditor a login, and they can get access to all of the records that you have. So that's great. A question from Stephen, Heena. What are the top 5 best practices for a company if they want to start a mock audit or an internal audit program? How do they get started with that?
Okay, so mock audit and then internal audit. First of all, the site must have a team in place, like a recall team or an internal audit team in place. And make sure that the team is well balanced. You probably want to have a representative from each department, like sanitation, maintenance, QA, and production, to have a well-balanced team so they understand what the internal audit is all about, and also come up with a very, very comprehensive audit checklist. So my suggestion is that if you're going through so many different types of audits, keep a copy of the particular audit checklist and prepare yourself against those questions. Go over each and every question and assign different departments to cover separate sections in the audit checklist. These audit checklists are very comprehensive. It covers quality management systems, it covers food safety systems, it covers all the prerequisite programs, and within a facility, different personnel have different roles. So it's always good to cross-train them. It's always good to make sure that they understand the questions in the audit checklist and that they're well prepared for the internal audit. And conduct a mock audit. Mock audit will basically allow you to check your in-house traceability system, and it will also allow you to see how quickly you can do the mock audit. Are you able to do the mock audit or traceability exercise within 2 hours or within 4 hours? So it's basically connecting all the dots to make sure that the finished product is traced back to the raw materials and that you can trace your finished product to your customers. So the whole goal is to have a team in place. And nowadays, there are so many companies who are offering internal audit training classes. And those classes are great. So it's always good to go and attend those internal auditing classes and get some tips how to conduct the internal audit and also mock audits. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it does. Question from Tavia. What types of trending reports, and I'm assuming this is trending reports for continuous improvement, might you look for in a fruit and vegetable processing warehouse?
So customer complaint is a great tool to measure the performance of the food safety outcome, the whole food safety program. It's a tool where most of the facilities will use to see, okay, how many complaints are received on an annual basis, and then they evaluate the complaint, whether the complaint is coming, say, for example, for the fresh cut operation. You get lots of debris from the farm, right? And so it ends up in the finished product, fresh cut product, for example, stones and other field debris. So it's good to trend those. It's just one of those key performance indicators to show you where you stand with your customer complaint. And if you see repeat occurrences, if you see the same finding all the time, then the company needs to come up with an action plan or preventive action plan to prevent that particular complaint from happening again. So it's always good to trend the complaints. Another thing that I would focus on is swabbing, sanitation, verification of the sanitation program. I know fresh cut industry, fresh cut operations, they take lots and lots of swabs. So what do you do with the result? Do you file it away and say, okay, everything was fine? Or do you actually take the data point and you trend it, and then you say, okay, in January there was no finding. February there were no findings. March, oops, we had 3 positives, so let's turn around and find photogenics. What happened here? So it's good to trend that. It will kind of put you on the right track, and then you can come up with the corrective action by saying, okay, let's take some investigative swabs and see what the problem is. So I would focus on sanitation, customer complaints, and obviously you can also focus on the data points like pest control program. You know, the sites of pest control program where a person gives their report. Trend those findings. See if there are lots of activities in one area or there are no activities. Put it on a simple graph. Companies tend to collect lots of data, so it's always good to analyze those data. Right. And it will probably put you on the right track.
Great, thank you. That question from Thomas. Can you use pest control records and sanitation records as an indication of the real implementation of a company's food safety plan?
Well, sanitation and prerequisites and pest control records are the prerequisite program requirements. So yeah, it does play a big role in terms to reflect where the food safety program stands. So sanitation records will probably tell you whether the sanitation happened or not. And obviously, when you do sanitation, you need to document the concentration of the chemicals, what kind of chemicals are being used, and how often the equipment is getting cleaned, and conducting the pre-operational inspections, and then taking pre-op swabs to make sure that all the areas have been cleaned effectively. The sanitation, evaluation of the sanitation program is one of the tools to measure the performance of your audit. And also pest control. Pest control, have the pest control company trend all the findings, and that will also reflect where you stand with the pest control program. Sometimes some companies will also use the in-house personnel to go and check the traps. So that's another way of cross-checking whether the pest control person is doing the work or not.
Great. I'm going to go, we still have quite a few questions. We're going to come to them. I am getting some messages from some folks that need to leave. So what I'm going to do is just show this last slide. In case you are running off to another meeting, I'm going to remind you again that you will receive the slides and recording by the close of business on Monday. That'll be in an email. For more information, you can see our website addresses and contact there, and it'll also, the contact information will also be on the email that you get on Monday with the slides and the recording. So I'm going to put that up for those of you who have questions about those things, and we're going to jump right back and get to some more questions. Heena, I got a question from Charlie, who's saying, can you explain why doing trending on equipment repairs is a food safety issue? It's a tough issue for him to explain, and hoping you can provide some insight on that.
Well, product equipment plays a big role. First of all, we want to make sure that the equipment is well designed and that there are no rust and they don't have any paints on the equipment. And what happens when the equipment breaks down? All the products are left on the equipment, right? And what happens to all those products? If the product needs temperature control, then there will be issues with the product, and all those products becomes a WIP product, work in progress. So those products needs to be handled. It needs to be taken care of really quickly. And so the more equipment breakdown that you're going to have, it's going to affect the production efficiency. It's going to affect the quality of the product. And who knows, it might lead to microbiological contamination, because now the products are lying on the conveyor belts, and if the company does not have a quick action plan to collect all those products, put it in a container, label it, and put it right away in the freezer or in the cooler, then all those products will be thrown away. So the cost will be affected, the company will be losing money, and at the same time, there will be a huge production loss. So it's always good to identify some of the critical equipment in the production area, and also which equipment breaks down more often, so that the senior management can take a second look at it and repair those equipment to make sure that there's a smooth production going on all the time, and also improve the production efficiency numbers. Because most of the companies, they do the calculation of the production efficiencies. So it's important that the production lines are running smoothly, yes.
Great, thank you. I'm going to answer a question. I have a couple of questions that I'm seeing on using the automated system, the SafetyChain system, I'm assuming, because that's what I know about. Can your auditor look at policies and procedures? And the answer to that is yes. It's roles-based, and so you would be able to define what you did and did not want your auditor to see. But if you want them to see, all of your policies, all of your procedures, the scheduling of those, the verification that they've been done, non-conformance alerts, CAPAs, that's all available, and then that would just be up to you to decide what you wanted to provide access to. And now I'm going to come back to you. So I've got a question here saying we do annual training for our employees who handle CCP testing and monitoring. Would you suggest a quiz to go along with that training to make sure that the training's been effective?
Yes, that's a really good question. Yes, by giving quiz after each training session, that will validate the training materials and the training program. So that's a very good practice that you can do after each training session. Yes, please give the quiz and give 10 or 15 or 20 questions, and provide some pretty good questions, and make sure that the questions are covering all the training materials. And also asking them verbally during the training, ask them questions and get them involved. Make sure that the training material is exciting, put some pictures out there so that the personnel will be able to understand the training material.
Robert is asking specifically about your audits that you do, that SCS Global Services does. Robert's asking if submitted prior to the audit, will SCS review standard operating procedures and policies to make sure that they'll meet the requirements of the audit questions?
No, we don't review the procedures well ahead of time. We review all the procedures at the site. So that's what an audit is all about. Yeah, we haven't done that at all, yeah. I mean, we do send the audit checklist out so the site can be prepared for the audit, but we don't review all these documents ahead of time. It's all done during the audit.
Right, and I think that's probably pretty standard. Jennifer's asking, if we do internal audits, are summaries of those audit records, GMPs, XPSs, okay as a means of demonstrating validation of an organization's programs?
When an internal audit is conducted, typically the site uses the same audit checklist that the auditor will be using. Internal audit should have a list of all the questions and should be covering all the areas of the facility as well. And also it should reflect conformities and non-conformities. So just by having a summary does not tell an auditor during the audit that the team has done an effective internal audit. Auditors would like to see the whole complete audit checklist, list of questions, which questions were evaluated by the internal audit team, and what was the outcome. And the audit checklist should be well balanced, conformities and non-conformities, and all the corrective actions must be documented and should be taken care of within the deadline. So it's always good to give a deadline on a corrective action, and then someone should be assigned to go and conduct follow-ups. So that's what we actually look for. We kind of dig deep when it comes to internal audit. Who's conducting the audit, whether the person has been trained well or not. The person should be independent from the department getting audited. That's why it's very important to have the internal audit team representatives from different departments, and they should be cross-trained. They should understand what other department does so that they'll be qualified to conduct the internal audit. Or some sites will use an outside consultant to come and do an internal audit. So it requires lots of information, yes.
Here's a question from Kim. Kim is saying, during the audit, what do you think is a good ratio of time for the auditor and the team to spend on paperwork and reviewing the records versus actually seeing processes, you know, in the facility? 50,
did you mention DRC audit, Barbara?
No,
or any audit?
Any audit. Any audit.
Oh, any audit. Okay, so basically when conducting an internal audit or any audit, since the audit covers the quality management systems, food safety management systems, all the prerequisite programs, the site will come up with a matrix. And in the matrix, they will say, okay, in January, we are going to cover calibration audit. In February, we will be covering sanitation. So they just come up with a schedule. And as the year goes along, they focus in one area at a time. So that will allow them to review the records, say, for example, the calibration in January, sanitation in February, and maybe HACCP in March. And also at the same time, they can do the facility walkthrough to make sure that all the employees are following personal hygiene practices and verify all the proper product handling practices in the facility.
During an audit, that you would spend half of your time looking at records and half of your time doing the walkthrough, or do you think?
No, it varies. It varies on the size of the facility. If the facility is huge, then obviously the team will be spending more time on the facility. Record reviews, it depends how well the facility is organized. Some facilities are really well organized, and if they're monitoring their records and reviewing their records on a continuous basis, then when the internal audit happens, then it's easy to review their records. It's basically cross-checking, make sure that all the records are in place. And you can also take into consideration all your GMP inspections that's been conducted at least on a monthly basis, or pre-operational inspections can be included in your internal audit from a data standpoint. So you can include lots of different inspections, but there is no such rule as 50-50 or 80-20. It just depends on the team. It depends on the facility, how well they're organized.
Okay, great. I love this question. From Haas, any advice on keywords or phrases to not say in front of your auditor related to your own documentation or policies or procedures? Keywords and phrases to not say.
Ew, that's a really good question. Now I'm putting my thinking hat on. Let me see. Do not say.
No, them, but.
Yeah, don't say, well, like, oh, you know, let me go and look for a record, and then the person just disappears from the room and doesn't turn up. you know, in an hour, then you know that something's going wrong, or the person is gone looking for a record. Or I wouldn't say, I don't know, you know, like negative words. Yeah, it kind of reflects that the person is not sure in answering the question. The best thing you can do is be honest about things. If you don't have anything, just let the auditor know, sorry, I don't have a record, or sorry, we haven't done that, rather than delaying the audit and trying to justify that, you know, you are trying to find records, you are trying to information from somewhere else. So the whole goal is to be confident and be positive, yeah, be positive, yes.
Thank you. Question from Jamie. What is an auditor looking for to demonstrate verification of allergen control?
Well, initially we look at all of the list of all the raw ingredients that's coming in, and then we see, okay, which products have allergens in it. Then we start from the receiving, we look for the labeling, you know, how allergens are labeled, where the allergens are stored, are the stores segregated, are allergen-containing products labeled with the allergen label, and then whether workers are trained or not, receivers are trained or not, how to handle allergens. And during production, we look at how allergens are handled, whether the facility has a designated schedule to produce allergen-producing products, and also during shipping. So we look for the records, we do lots of visual observations, we interview the workers as well, working in those areas to make sure they understand how to handle allergen-containing products. And, you know, companies have identified the allergen handling tools. They're color-coded. They stand out. You can see from miles away. And if someone finds, say, for example, a yellow scoop in a non-allergen area, then it's like a red flag is raised, like something is wrong. So these are some of the practices we look for: labeling, we interview the workers, make sure they understand the program, and segregation, and also make sure that there is no commingling going on and no cross-contamination happening on the production line. And also, once it's packed, where the finished products are stored. So these are some of the key areas we focus on.
Okay, great. So a couple of additional questions. In an unannounced audit, are the auditors to come in on weekends or outside of a 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. time frame?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
In an unannounced audit, are the auditors allowed to come in on weekends or outside of a normal business day time frame? No, because the purpose of conducting an audit is to verify the production practices, verify the employee practices. So audit basically happens when you are in full production. And yes, auditors would like to come and conduct the audit while the facility is in full operation, so that they can make some pretty good observations and verify the program that the site has implemented. So by having audits in the weekends after the hours will not work. Right. Okay. And with with the SQF unannounced audit, for example, I mean it's not completely unannounced because you can schedule a general time frame in which it'll take place. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, especially with SQF. The way the recertification audits are scheduled, it must be scheduled plus or minus 30 days from the initial date of the audit. So the site is given a 60-day window, and SQF allows blackout dates where the certification body will obviously send an email ahead of time that we have chosen this particular site for an unannounced audit. And the blackout dates are where the supplier will respond to the certification body and say, okay, we are not available on such and such day, because that can happen. Sometimes, people go on vacation and the whole team is not present. So that's fine. And then the certification body will decide which auditor will go and conduct the audit at the site. But yeah, there is an option of providing blackout dates to the certification body, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, a question from Laura. During an audit, how do you confront an auditor without stepping on their toes that he or she is not using their audit time efficiently while on site?
Well, typically the auditor is required to send an audit plan ahead of time, and if the auditor is not following the audit plan, then yes, I mean, it does become a problem. I mean, I would not imagine why the auditor would not follow the audit plan, because based on the auditor's experience, the auditor should know where to start. Typically, the auditor starts with the opening meeting, then does the facility walkthrough, and then reviews the records and documents, and again, they go back. But going back to your question, I guess you'll have to let the auditor know what's happening. You know, will you be able to finish the audit on time? Your audit plan is saying, okay, within such time frame, you'll be covering such and such section in the audit, and I can see that you are kind of a little bit behind. And is it because we are not providing you records on time, or the auditor is taking more time chatting away, which is not a good thing, because now you're losing time. So, yeah, it's always good to let the auditor know your concern. You know, it goes both ways. It's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street when it comes to an audit.
Oh, and you've mentioned several times that being honest is really the best thing.
Exactly. Be honest about things, and things will just go smoothly, you know.
Yep. Heena, I've got a follow-up question to the one that I asked before the last one about auditors coming in on the weekends. And Tavia, who asked that question, said, if the facility is open 7 days a week, could the auditor then come in unannounced on a weekend if this is a 7-day-a-week facility?
Yeah, that's fine. That's between the auditor and the site. So the certification body will send a notification email out to the auditor and say, okay, you're assigned at this particular site, and the site would like to have the audit conducted in a weekend. It's a full production going on, and the primary products will be produced on this particular day. Then it's up to the auditor to say, okay, I guess I can go and work in the weekend. Auditors don't like to work in the weekends. Just wanted to let you guys know. Those are the days that we like to stay at home, but if the auditor is willing to work, then that's fine. It's just between the site and the auditor.
And so if that facility has been audited on a weekend before, then I guess an unannounced audit could take place on a weekend, correct? Yes.
Yeah, it can take place in a weekend as long as there's full production going on and the auditor will be able to verify all the information. Otherwise, the whole audit will not go anywhere. You know, the auditor will be upset. Auditor will say, well, I'm working the weekend, there's no full production, and there's lack of personnel. That's another thing. If you have employees full-time working there with the weekend, that's fine. You should provide resources during the audit. Senior management, are they willing to come in for the audit? Managers and supervisors, will they be present during the audit? So those are the factors we have to take into consideration before we say, okay, approved to conduct an audit.
And I'm going to go back to that very first slide. If you ask your auditor to come in on a weekend, you better feed them well.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Heena, Vivian is asking, in a previous SQF audit, the auditor wanted my company to have different colored brooms for different parts of the facility. For example, yellow brooms in production, blue brooms for the warehouse. Do you think this is necessary?
I think so. I'm an auditor myself, and the reason I'm saying that's very important because you don't want to cross use different types of cleaning items in different areas. So say, for example, it's a typical standard that product equipment should be a white-colored brush, and the drain should be cleaned with a black brush. And the cleaning items used in the production area should not be used to clean any other areas in the facility. There should be a total segregation of the cleaning items because, those items get really dirty. And it has bacteria on it, and you don't want to use a broom that was used in the warehouse or outside the building and bring it inside the production area because that's a source of cross-contamination of introduction of pathogens in your production area. So it's like a big no-no, total segregation of the cleaning items. Yep.
Great. I see quite a few questions about electronic records specific to SafetyChain. And what I'll ask those folks to do is send those to the info@SafetyChain email address, or you can send them to me personally. My email is blevin, B-L-E-V-I-N, @SafetyChain, and we can get you those answers offline, because I want to keep these questions for Heena. Back to this color coding, I've got a follow-up question from Richard saying, how would you handle color blindness? If you've got an employee who's colorblind, would you use numbering instead, perhaps, versus colors?
Wow, I've never been through that situation before. I think that's a great idea. You know, as long as it's clearly identified and it's totally segregated, whatever method you choose, and if it's working, then yes, go for it. Yep.
So the idea is just to have a system for making sure that there's no contamination.
Exactly. Have a system in place and make sure that the system is working. And if you're introducing something like this, I would probably spend some time on the production floor and making sure that it has been implemented fully. Audit that particular area and audit that particular section, you know.
Great. I think this might be our last question. Laura's asking, as an auditor, do auditors audit to non-compliance, or are they auditing to compliance?
Well, it's both. We look for the conformities, and if there's a finding, then it becomes a non-conformity. So our goal is to visit the site and verify the information they have. We go over all the documented procedures and make sure what's written in the procedures have been implemented on the floor. And so it's all about verification and cross-checking basically your own program to see whether it's working or not. So that's the whole function of an audit, yes.
Let's see. I've got another one that snuck in here. I think we've got 1 minute left. So if a policy says an inspection or check is conducted on a monthly basis, would a non-conformity be issued if an inspection was not conducted exactly 30 days from the previous check or inspection?
Well, if the standard operating procedure is saying that monthly inspections shall be conducted, then yes, the auditor will look at the frequency of the inspection, and if the inspection has been skipped, then, and if the auditor sees a trend, then yes, it can become a non-conformity. Yes, because the auditors really rely on the standard operating procedures, because when we come on the site, we don't know, we don't have any information, so we rely on your program. We read the procedures, and you know, it's always important to put detailed information in the procedures. Tell me a story from point A to point Z. How does the system work? Say, for example, if I'm asking you, you know, how do you clean an equipment? Tell me from the beginning, okay, we use such and such chemicals, these are our cleaning items. Tell me a story, and then based from that information, we go and verify the information on the production floor. And if we see any inconsistency, then we end up giving a finding, because technically you're not following your own procedures and you have not implemented those procedures on the production floor.
Great, thank you. Well, with that, we are at the top of the hour. If for any reason we missed your question, or if it didn't get in on time, we've got all of these questions documented. I'll make sure that we get an answer back to you after the webinar. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for all these great questions, very interactive. We love that. And, of course, thank you to our partner, SDS Global Services, for co-sponsoring this event, and, of course, to you, Heena, for sharing with us your expertise and your insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And everybody have a great afternoon and a great weekend.